Thank you. Dr. Dunn, are you still with us?
Yes, I'm still here.
Thank you for being there. Good afternoon and welcome to the Liberian Diaspora Forum weekly talk show. My name is Kafumba. As always, I'm your host, moderator, however you choose to call it. Today we have the privilege of hosting Dr. Elwood Dun. I'm told he's the chairman for the National Symbols of Liberia, such as the national anthem we just listened to, the Liberian flag, the seal, and a whole bunch of other stuff, some of which I did not even know about, to be honest. But today we are glad to have the doctor himself on, so he's going to talk to us about what is it that his committee is responsible of doing and what are they going to do. We've been told already that there's this debate about possible replacement of the Liberian national flag and perhaps the national anthem of Liberia, none of which we have confirmed. They are just all rumors yet. But we want to go beyond that by inviting Dr. Dunn to the show so that he can speak to all of us, me included, about his committee and the work that lies ahead of them. Dr. Dunn, welcome to the Liberian Diaspora Forum weekly talk show.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be on the show and to clarify some of the issues. So, do you want me to proceed with what this is all about?
No, we all listen to you now. Proceed. You got the floor.
Very good. Well, let me first point out that I serve as project coordinator for an initiative that the government has undertaken under the statutory responsibility of the Governance Commission. Some of your listeners may know that Professor Amos Sawyer is chair of the Governance Commission. So I am coordinator of a project under the Governance Commission, and that project is to organize and lead an effort to review Liberia's national symbols, meaning the flag, the seal, the anthem, the national awards. That is, we are to sit and figure out how to organize and lead an effort. Now, I think it's useful to first raise the question, why is this coming about at this point in time? What is the origin of all of this? And I think the origin of all of this can be pointed out as first something that happened in the 1970s. The Talbot administration found it necessary to create a commission to do precisely what we are asked to do today. That is to review in that case it was not only the national symbols, but also the Constitution. So that commission was led by the late Postmaster General McKinley A. DeShield, something called the DeShield Commission. So that's one background. The other background is the Truth and Reconciliation Commission report. Most of your listeners would have heard about the TRC and the report that they came out with. The third background is the National Vision 2030 project. And I'm mentioning these because these are the things that led the government to do what it is doing now, meaning people spoke when it came to the TRC process. People spoke when it came to the Vision 2030 process. And I dare say people spoke back in the 1970s. And all of these people speaking were saying, some of the symbols unite us, but some of the symbols divide us. So therefore, let us review all of them so that we can, at the end of the day, satisfy ourselves whether all of them unite us or some of them don't unite us, and what it is that we want to do with them. So I have spoken a little bit about origins. Now let me raise the question, why are we reviewing these national symbols? There is a reason, or there are reasons. We want to review the national symbols because we as a Liberian people are living a contested historical narrative, meaning we all are not agreed about our national narrative. One. Number two, we want to review the symbols because we are a divided people. And if you doubt that we are a divided people, just back up a little bit to 1980 and the coup d'etat, and just remember the atmosphere that prevailed in Liberia in the aftermath of that coup d'etat of 1980. The other reason is that we are an unreconciled people. We are, as we speak, a very fragile nation coming out of 14 years of civil war, and the issue of national reconciliation is foremost on the national agenda. A perhaps third or fourth reason is that we are faced with an identity issue. Maybe some people think we are not. And this is the reason why we are putting this out for a debate. If we are clear about our identity as Liberians, then fine. We don't have a problem. Let's go forward. But these are some of the reasons that have led to this process being put in place. Now, how will the review take place? Two major things are very important. One is called civic education. In other words, we have to put on the table for people to debate what these symbols are, where they came from, what they mean, how people respond to them. So there is a full-fledged program of civic education that will precede national consultations. And when I say national consultations, I mean that the intention is to reach every single Liberian on the homeland, Liberians in the diaspora. We will devise ways and means of consulting everyone. And at the end of the day, if after the civic education and the consultation, everybody is satisfied with the symbols such as they are, everybody is satisfied that we do not have an issue of national disunity, that we do not have an issue that we have to reconcile ourselves, we don't have an issue of national identity. If the conclusion after this discussion and after the consultation is keep things as they are, then things stay as they are. The mandate that we have is not a mandate to change. It is a mandate to consult. And if after the consultation people want certain adjustments or certain changes, then it is at that point that those adjustments or those changes are going to be considered. And let me make one other point before I leave this. How is this going to be done? We cannot change Liberia's national symbols without going through the regular process of a constitutional amendment. And what that means is we will submit our report to the executive. The executive will submit that report to the legislature. The legislature will debate it. And if it agrees, it will have to pass it by 2/3 majority. And after passing it by 2/3 majority, it will then, after 1 year of debate, then be submitted to the Liberian people in the form of a referendum. So it is that referendum that will determine what the final outcome is going to be in all of this process. Let me finally say how we are organized to do this particular project. First, there is an advisory board of about 25 people, one from each of the 15 counties, one from Liberian associations in the diaspora, including the Union of Liberian Association in the Americas, and the one in Europe, and the one in Ghana, some youth organization represented on it. This is the board that was constituted by the president. The president appointed this board, and this board is intended to provide political guidance and direction to the other units of this project. Talking about other units, let me just quickly mention there is an implementation team. So it's not a committee as such, but an implementation team that has a number of programs under it. Civic education, as I said earlier, consultations, graphic design and public selection, if and when we come to that, as well as legislative liaison. In terms of the people involved in all of this, I would have to mention the chair of the Governors Commission, Dr. Sawyer, myself as project coordinator. We have Mr. Samson Quia as the administrator for the project, and we have Reverend Emmanuel Buya as one of the members of the implementation team, Ms. Wiada Koba Rue, who is also a member, and there are two other people that don't readily come to my mind right now. So this is the small organization that we have that works out of what I call a cubicle at this point in time, out of the Governor's Commission on 9th Street in Monrovia. We are at the very beginning stage of all of this. We've been given basically seed money to do a number of things. We've launched a project. The President launched the project on the 6th of February past, and we held on the 6th of June past a symposium where we had Sister Mary Lorraine Brown, the president of Stella Maris Polytechnic University, serve as keynote speaker. And we had some senior officials of government present making remarks, the vice president being the most senior, the president pro tem of the Senate, the foreign minister of foreign affairs, and I think there was someone representing the Speaker of the House of Representatives. We had 4 other major presentations, one by the South African ambassador to Liberia, who was sort of sharing with us the South African experience with symbols change in the aftermath of the apartheid situation in their country. So in a nutshell, this is what this is all about. We have been called upon to organize and to lead a national conversation on these national symbols with a view to addressing specifics. And those specifics are called national unity, national reconciliation, and national identity. I hope this sets the stage for a discussion, and I'll be glad to come in and answer questions as the need arises.
Thank you, Dr. Dunn. Thank you for that distinct clarification, because ever since we started the publicity of your coming on show, I have personally taken lots of phone calls from people wanting to know why change the national flag at this time. Why is that relevant? What has that got to do with corruption? Why talk about the national anthem, for instance? But now what you've just said, if I heard you right, basically just about having conversation, whether or not, in fact, there's need for it. It's not a mandate given that these things must be changed, but rather to talk about it. So if it becomes a consensus among Liberians all across the globe, then before it becomes a mandate. Is that what you just said, Dr. Dunn?
Precisely.
Thank you. All right, thank you. Well, folks, you've just heard our guest today, Dr. Elwood Dun, the chairman project manager, project director for National Symbols of Liberia. He just made his introductory remark, and so I will now invite you. Your question lines are open. Feel free to jump in. Dial *61. I know a lot of you are on here, certainly a whole lot of you compared to yesterday. So *61 is working now. Dial *61 on your phone anytime if you have question, comment, and or concern, and we will give you the chance to jump in on this very important conversation. Dr. Dunn, while we await our callers to make up their mind, let me begin by asking you, I think one of the things that Liberians, at least those that I've spoken to before now, seem to be a bit troubled by is that why are we even having that conversation now? How does that contribute, to why this particular point in time? Couldn't we wait and deal with all of the pressing issues that we have on hand? And then, talk about, the idea of re-examining our national symbols. Why now? Why not,
later on?
Right.
Why now rather than later?
Yeah.
But I think the way to put it is that the country is in a reform mode, meaning we are coming out of a devastating civil war. We are trying to rebuild. And when you say we are rebuilding or reconstructing, you can think about it in terms of material reconstruction and non-material reconstruction, meaning we are building bridges, roads, power grids, schools, hospitals, addressing the grinding poverty that we face. All of those things are very tangible things, and they're way up there. But the question that one has to ask oneself is, what about the non-material part of our being as a country? And when I say the non-material part, what do we believe? What are our values? What are our norms? How do we talk about our status in the context of our society? If we don't address these values-oriented things, chances are we are going to be confused about our identity. And I think if we are confused about our identity, it's going to be very easy for us to bring about the havoc that came about as a result of the Civil War once again. In other words, if we are not together as a people, clear about what we call ourselves for ourselves and what it is that we wish to project to the outside world about who we are as a people. So I don't think it's an issue of one over the other, of the tangible over the intangible. I think it's an issue of both going forward together. Because if we do not, I think, seriously consider this non-material part of the culture, which has to do with these symbols, I think we are going to be confused in terms of who we are as a people.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll leave it there for now. We'll begin taking questions from callers on here, and as we go on. But folks, do be reminded that yesterday we had the privilege of hosting the president of the Press Union of Liberia, Honorable Abdoulaye Kamara. It wasn't a greatest show by any account due to where he was, and a whole lot of fun issue that he was going through. So we will reschedule that. And tomorrow evening, tomorrow night, I'm sure you know by now that we'll be hosting a lawyer that the government of Liberia recently hired to come after Judge Melvin Johnson and Ellie Conqueror from the airport situation. Judge Melvin Johnson has indicated to me more than twice today that he'd like to debate the government lawyer instead. We haven't reached that conclusion yet, but the fact remains they will both be on. Judge Melvin Johnson will be on tomorrow night just as the government hired lawyer will come here to debate the issue of corruption at the Liberian International Airport, Rubber International Airport that you know of. We will take our first caller for the night, and to those of you who just joined us, so many of you just joined us, we want to welcome you to the Liberian Diaspora Forum Weekly Talk Show. We have with us Dr. Elwood Dun. I hope I'm saying that right, talking about national symbols of Liberia. What do you think? Should we change the flag? Should we, change the national anthem? What are your views? Please dial *61 on your phone so that you can have a say, so you can contribute to this discussion. Let's take our first caller for the night. Your last 4 digits is 1040, 1040. Would you please tell us your name, where you're calling from, and your question for Dr. Dunn? 1040.
Yeah, my name is Kromah. I'm calling from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Good evening, Dr. Dunn.
Good morning, sir. How are you?
I'm good, sir.
I guess.
Good evening, yeah. First of all, I must commend the project team for organizing this forum and Mr. Kiatama for Mr. Kromah for executing it, for us to participate in. As you all may recall or may be aware, symbols speak volumes. As much as our material improvements or development is essential to our well-being, but if you have the wrong symbols, you're going to be criticized for either looking down on one set of people or promoting one set of people. And for a political, cultural, religious mosaic like Liberia, we can afford to have that. Now, specifically, I'm going back to the Grand Cordon. For the most venerable order of the pioneers is, if one can recall, 2 years ago when Dr. Dunn delivered the National 26th Day Oration, he was scheduled to have been honored, given that honor, like all other previous speakers before him. But in credit to him, as he realized in the divisive nature of that specific symbol, he discreetly declined to receive it. I'm saying that to say I've been reading the list service. Some people are coming up accusing the project directors that they are only promoting this for selfish pecuniary interest and all the rest. But I would like to reiterate, like every patriotic Liberian, I see very bad when I look at that symbol, the love for liberty brought us here. Or when I see a flag that is basically that of Texas, that was not even raised on July 26th, but August 24th as our national ensign. I don't have a question, but thanks, that's just my little 2 cent piece. Thanks again, Dr. Dunn.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Kromah. Dr. Dunn, do you care to comment on that, sir?
Well, I mean, he's expressed his views about the particulars, meaning when we get down to the details of the specific symbols, how do Liberians feel about these symbols? Do they identify with them? Do we have majority of Liberians identifying with the symbols? Or do some of the symbols alienate some of us? And that is what the debate is all about. How many of us feel we can relate to these symbols? If too many of us cannot relate to it, then we have a problem. And we need to therefore sit down and figure out what we want to do with that problem, meaning what solution we want to bring to it.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Dunn, I have here in my possession a remarks by Dr. Elwood Dun at the first symposium of the NSRP, Peaceville City Hall, June 6, 2014. And there you spoke a lot. We will get to that if the audience can give us a chance to ask some questions on our own. But let's hear from our caller. We give preference to our callers on this show. Let's see what 4724 has to say. 4724, your name, where you calling from, your question, comment, or concern for Dr. Dunn. 4724.
Hey, Kafumba, this is Mohammed Sharif from Pennsylvania.
Okay, welcome to the show.
Hi, Dr. Dunn. Good evening and good morning, Monrovia, because I know this is morning now.
Good evening. How are you?
Good. So I have a different take from the last caller. Our motto says, the love of liberty brought us here. How true is that? Absolutely true. Now, Liberia is a nation of immigrants. Most Liberians don't agree with that. Most Liberians believe that they're descended from heaven or germinated from the surface of the earth. And therefore, some other Liberians are looked down upon as foreigners. For instance, the Mandingos. There is a constant barrage of this kind of exclusionary policy, exclusionary remarks, exclusionary attitudes against the Mandingos, and this is not talked about. So instead of focusing on some substantive issues, we are now introducing this whole project about revising our national symbols or even having a discussion about national symbols. I agree. I am the son of someone who migrated to Liberia, the grandson of someone who migrated to Liberia. And I believe that all of us, including Dr. Dunn, all of us in Liberia migrated from somewhere. So the love of liberty brought my grandparents to Liberia. The love of liberty brought the pioneers to Liberia. The love of liberty brought all of us to Liberia. Liberia is a nation of immigrants. Now, my national anthem, the national anthem says, this great land of liberty shall long be ours. This is very true. So this great land of liberty is so patriotic, it's so sweet to our ears that to even think about changing this is really a historical revision, and that shouldn't be done. So I propose that changes in our national laws and attitudes must be the prerequisite to our national cohesiveness. So to me, it's and I hate to say a waste of resources, but I don't think that, revising our national symbols, revising our national anthem, our motto and stuff like that will help us. So instead of doing that, we want to go back to our laws. We want to build law. We want to make laws that bring our nation together. For example, no one is talking about hate crime laws. So if I go to Monrovia right now, I get stopped at checkpoints along the way. If I'm going to visit my people in rural Liberia, I get stopped, I get questioned, I get frisked, and no one is talking about that. No one is talking about these different set of brutalities. And quite honestly, these kind of discrimination that goes on every single day in Liberia. And we need to talk about that. We need to put that on the table. That's the prerequisite for national development cohesiveness.
Okay. Thank you. We'll leave it there. Dr. Dunn, another comment?
Yes. Well, listen, I will not purport to respond to the views expressed by everybody, because our job isn't to do that. Our job is to hear people, to hear all of the views. And once we launch these things more fully, meaning once we have completed the plan for civic education and begun the formal national consultations, we'll be hearing more of the views that are being expressed now. And we will have a, if you will, methodology that we will employ to make sense of the views that are expressed as we compile a report that will basically say to us exactly what Liberian people are thinking about these things. The one thing the last speaker said was that he agreed with the idea of a conversation. He expressed his views. He heard the previous views. He will hear other views. Let us debate this thing. And when we have completed the debate, then we will reach the conclusion, and whatever that conclusion is, if it is that we love the anthem, and I noticed that a lot of people love the anthem, love the lyrics, some would like to see some words changed, but all of this is part and parcel of what we are trying to do, initiate a national conversation around these ideas that are called national unity ideas, national reconciliation ideas, national identity ideas. If we agree there, I think we have enough basis upon which we can continue the conversation.
Thank you, Dr. Dunn. And by the way, I wasn't suggesting that you respond to every single one of them, but I'd like to give you the chance every time someone makes a remark, just so if you care to add or subtract, you can always say no comment. That's fine, folks, again, so many of you has just logged on within the last few minutes, so I'd like to take this time to welcome you to the Liberian Diaspora Forum Weekly Talk Show. Today we have with us Dr. Elwood Dun, Project Manager for the National Symbols of Liberia. They are considering working on having national conversation about our national symbols in Liberia for the possibility of changing some of them, and so they want you the Liberian, to have an input. Pretty much they are listeners at this point. They want to hear what you have to say. So please dial *61 on your phone, *61. I got a couple of text messages here. How do you ask questions? The way you ask questions is to dial *61 on your phone. That's easier than texting me. There you go. Questions coming through. *61 on your phone is what you need, and we will get your questions going. So going back to the caller, let's hear from some of the callers we got in the queue here. Let's hear from 9263. 9263. Please tell us your name, where you're calling from, and your question for Dr. Dunn. 9263.
Hello?
Hello? Yeah.
Yeah, hi. My name is Leon Harris. I'm calling from Des Moines, Iowa. I'm glad to be in the program tonight. I think it's a very important discussion that we all should be having. However, I don't agree with any of the, of the whole premise of the whole thing. First of all, let me give you a little background on myself. My name is Leon Harris. The Harris, my great-grandfather was Benjamin Harris, came to Liberia, settled in Sano County, was the first Liberian teacher in Tapeta. He didn't go there to oppress anybody. He didn't go to take advantage of the natives. He wanted to teach. And while doing that, he died in Sano County, in Tapeta. He died from malaria. He died for serving his people. And my other great-grandfather, who happened to come from Senegal, he came to Senegal, and he to Liberia, for freedom, to create work for himself. And he settled there. He married Golas, he married vile women, and that's where my mother came from. So the love of liberty brought here, I see it fit into the definition of freedom. And that's for the one that came from the United States, the one that came from Senegal, and those that he met there. I don't see anything wrong with it. Anything, I think we should applaud those that even come up with that phrase, because it was revolutionary on the part to even think about something in the future that will balance everybody. And the thing we should be focusing on today as Liberians, to be frank, is the issue of corruption. And that's why it's killing us. We tend to downplay the impact of the Civil War in our country and how that has affected our culture as a whole. And I think that's what we need to be focusing on. So, but that's my contribution. Thank you.
Thank you for your contribution. Dr. Dunn, again, you don't have to respond, but I'm giving you the chance if you care to comment.
Yes. I will simply say this, and this is broad. There are some people so far since we've been engaging these conversations, there are some who've taken the view that we should not touch any of the national symbols, just leave things as they are. Everything is fine, just leave it. There are others on the other extreme who feel that we should scrap the whole thing and change everything. Our job is to, as you said earlier, to listen. My thinking is that most Liberians are going to be at neither extreme, neither one that says change everything, nor one that says maintain the status quo, keep everything as it is. I think after this conversation, we are likely to find ourselves somewhere to the middle. And I think that most of the conversation will be around that issue, that place of the middle in terms of what we should do with these symbols.
Okay. Before I take the next caller, Dr. Dunn, let me, personally, I know I won't be surprised if you say your personal view does not matter. What Liberian people say is what you go by. But as a Liberian, a very well-learned Liberian, Dr. Elwood Dun, what do you think? Should we change any of those two things, mainly the national anthem or the national flag? What do you think?
Well, I think my views have come out in statements, public statements I've made in the past. And it's basically this, that some Liberians feel alienated by some of the symbols. And I think if people feel alienated, they will not feel a part of. And so we have to address the issue of those who feel so alienated. Why are they alienated? I think it's part of, it's a responsibility, it's a national responsibility for us to find out why people are alienated and seek to respond to that.
Okay. All right. Let's take another caller here. Let's hear from 1728, 1728. Your name, where you're calling from, your question, comment, or concern for Dr. Dunn.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Kromah, for recognizing me. This is Manu Berete, calling from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Good evening, Dr. Dunn.
Good evening, Mr. Berete.
Yeah, actually, I want us to do a little tiki-taka. Now, in football, we say from me to you, it's like I will pass it to you, you give it back to me, maybe one or two times, then I can ask a question I really want to ask, because I want to use those two questions, or these two questions, as premise for my actual question. So will you allow me to do that, sir?
By all means.
Okay. Yeah, it's not like I don't know, but I don't have my own background information, but I'm also trying to do this for the benefit of the other audience, for those that are in the audience too. So thank you very much for permitting me. What is the name of your commission? What is the actual name?
Oh, the committee. It's not a commission. It's a National Symbols Review Project. A National Symbols Review Project that comes under the statutory responsibility of the Governance Commission. The Governance Commission is a commission of the executive branch of the Liberian government.
Okay. Well, I want to ask you also. Yeah, but what is the main motive upon which you accepted the job, to review it and change it, or what? To
review it and find out what people want. If people want to maintain If people want to maintain the status quo, that is, keep everything as is, then think everything will remain as is. If people want to make certain changes, then we will also report that. We will report as faithfully as we can what people desire.
Okay, thank you very much. I think we are able to do the tiki-taka now. Let's go together. Can one level of patriotism be affected by the way you identify yourself with your national symbol? For instance, the national anthem, the national symbol, or the flag. Is there any way what is your view on it? Is it possible that the way people relate to their national symbols will affect the level of patriotism? If so, is there any connectivity between patriotism and corruption? Thank you.
Well, I don't know. All I will say is what I said before, that some people feel alienated by some of the symbols. And it's our job to find out why people feel alienated. And if a large number of Liberians feel alienated, then I think we'll have reason to propose some amendment to the particular symbol concerned.
Okay. Dr. Dunn, if you don't mind, can you do you care to share some of the symbols that some people feel alienated about? I know firsthand that the issue that some of our speakers alluded to earlier, the love of liberty brought us here. I know every time that is said, there are average, Aborigine, native Liberians rather, who think that that phrase is only applicable to, the American Liberians, that they came over here when we were already here. So could that be one of them, or do you care to share some of the national symbols that some Liberians feel alienated by?
Yeah, let me mention all of the symbols. The symbols are the flag, the seal, and it is at the top of the seal that there is this motto that says the love of liberty brought us here. The national anthem, which has music, you just played the music, and it has lyrics, it has words with meaning, and there are the national awards. The national awards are the Order of the Star of Africa, the Humane Order of African Redemption, the most venerable Order of Knighthood of the Pioneers of Liberia. Those are the three major national awards. And then you have a number of military awards. I mean, those are, in essence, the national symbols of Liberia that we have at the present time. And so what the debate is all about is how do Liberians relate to these symbols? Liberians, do they identify themselves? Do they see themselves reflected, if you will, in those symbols? Or do they feel alienated by any of these symbols? I mean, that's what the issue is all about. We are asking people or giving people an opportunity to think for the first time about these symbols. I must say something here, and that is we have an information booklet that is ready and about to be disseminated, which gives some, I think, very useful historical background to all of these symbols. In fact, at some point in time, we might do a booklet on each one of the symbols, meaning one specifically on the flag, one specifically on the seal, and so forth and so on, so that people are more fully informed about where these things have come from, how they have evolved, and then we can talk about the meaning of them and how people relate to them or do not relate to them, and what are the implications if people do not relate to them.
Thank you, Dr. Dunn. Folks, once again, welcome to the Liberian Diaspora Forum weekly talk show. We have Dr. Elwood Dun, Project Manager, Elwood Dun, Project Manager for National Symbols Review of Liberia, of course. And I do want to remind you that tomorrow, same time, same place, same numbers you have, will be here with, for the first time, Judge Melvin Johnson. Ellie Cochran will be confronting the recently government hired lawyer who's working on the case of having them extradited to Liberia to stand trial. So those two lawyers in the airport parlors will all meet on this forum tomorrow night. That should be interesting. We invite you to be a part. Let's hear from another caller. 3662. 3662. Your name, where you calling from, and your question, comment, or concern for Dr. Dunn.
My name is Joseph Johnson, and I'm calling from Brooklyn Park, Minnesota.
Okay, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Yes?
No, I was going to say, go ahead. You're on. Go ahead.
Yes. Okay. I want to call Dr. Dunn's attention to a statement he made during his National Independence Day celebration oration. He said, Liberia's problems could be economic, political, social, are traced to 3 stages. These problems have origins of 3 stages. He mentioned the Western stage, which means the mentality of the people who came from America and somewhere else. The second stage he traced as Islamic stage. I have a problem to that stage. And my problem is that people of Islamic origin have never created any problem in Liberia. And so, if we are in the darkness of problems, then I don't see what they've done that could be a factor contributory to Liberian problems. Another stage, the third stage, is African stage or Aboriginal stage. I have a very serious problem to that stage because when the satellite came, the Aborigines were nowhere. So, and they didn't have any problem with them. All the war that they talk about, Kromah war, this and that, and the rest of it, material people, the settlers were the origin of these things. So there was nothing that the native did that could have retarded the progress that we lack today. All right? Now let's come to the symbols. I have serious problems with the symbols, but the symbol, maybe if the symbols are corrected, the problem will still remain because we are talking about almost 200 years. 200 years of using colonial style of marginalizing or using coercive force against the natives. So whether we change the symbol, the change doesn't mean anything to me now. But let me come to the symbols. Love of liberty is not, it's love of liberty is pronounced when the natives were denied from voting or for better jobs, for education and everything since 1822 or 1847 to 1945. So I don't want to go to it. The national anthem. I think the national anthem was written because of a conceived thought or idea. It could have been written because of fear that one day the natives will take over their country. This is why they chose to employ certain vocabulary, like this love of liberty shall long be ours. Because what is long is defined. What is long could be 30 years of holding on to the country. Could be 100 years or 150 years. This sweet land of liberty shall long be ours. So they chose forever to long, because long is relative. You see, so I have a problem to that. Okay. Secondly, and another, the green land of liberty, okay, the green land of liberty is only the green land. Our pride is a green land. The land is green. I think that green refers to the vegetation. So I have a problem, because if our pride is in the green land and we have no program as far as agriculture and using the vegetation to benefit Liberia, and we are still buying a bag of rice out of our pocket, then I have a problem. But wasting our time over these symbols and the rest of it does not profit us, because profit us anything. Because we are talking about Jericho roads, we are talking about electricity, we are talking about corruption upon corruption. And so instead of wasting our time taking symbols that have already been acculturated into the society, and in fact people have forgotten about, so we should find something else to worry about.
All right. Yeah, we're going to leave it there. Thank you. Thank you. Dr. Dunn?
Yes, I've heard him express his view on a range of things. And, that's the purpose of this exercise, to give people an opportunity to vent their feelings, to say their piece, say their views. The one thing that I will simply say here about what the last caller said is, referring to what I said regarding our heritages. I think the essence of what I said was that we, the people of Liberia, are people of three heritages. We have the African heritage no one can deny. We have the Islamic heritage no one can deny, because that Islamic influence was there before even the New World blacks returned in the early part of the 19th century. And so you have the Western heritage coming with New World blacks. So we have these three backgrounds. I think these three are reflected in our culture. Our culture, the way we dress, the food we eat, the God we worship. All of these reflect this triple heritage. And I think that was the point I was making earlier on in this speech.
Dr. Dunn, before I take the next caller, is it the view of your committee, commission, whatever it is it the view, or perhaps even of those who empower you to begin this dialogue? Is it their view that if any of these national symbols were to change, for instance, that would translate into a change of attitudes on the part of Liberians? Is that the case?
Well, I think the thinking is coming from the people themselves. If you look at the Discourse Commission report, if you look at the Truth and Reconciliation Commission report, if you look at the Vision 2030 report, people are themselves saying the reason why they would like some revision to be brought to some of the symbols. What they are saying is, if those adjustments are made, that more Liberians would identify with those symbols, and that would then address the issues, those three issues that I mentioned earlier on, the issue of national unity, of reconciliation, and of identity. That is, we would come closer to resolving our identity problem, our reconciliation problem, our national unity problem.
Okay, all right. Okay. So, folks, I'll take two more new callers, and then Mr. Ability, I know you just came back for a follow-up question. Let me give these some new callers, at least two more before you. Then I'll come back to you to ask a follow-up question. And those of you here there are a lot of us here, please be a part of this very important national dialogue by simply dialing *61 on your phone. We'll give you the chance to, contribute. Well, great, more calls coming through. So let's take two more new callers, and then I'll go back to a follow-up caller, then I'll come back to new callers here. Let's go to anonymous caller. I don't like anonymous very much. I like to keep track of my callers. Whoever you are, anonymous caller, would you please be kind to give us a name, where you're calling from, your question, comment, and or concern for Dr. Dunn.
Good evening, Kafumba. Fellow alumnus from the Yes, good evening. Fellow alumnus from the School of International Service, Dr. Dunn, happy Father's Day to all fathers in studio and online. My name is Tia, and I'm calling from Washington, D.C. How are you, Dr. Dunn?
Thank you.
Yes. Dr. Dunn, I start off by saying that your very good friend and our fellow alumnus, Dr. Serapio, ask of you Luis Serapio from Mozambique, ask of you every single month. So I'm sure he'll be happy to hear from you. I ask you this question to say that thank you for your abundant publications on Liberia, its history, socioeconomic, political culture, and so forth. But you've been an academician and a statesman for some time. I want to call your attention to the premise that an important cause of ethnic conflict and ethnic violence can be located basically in the psychological framework of groups, within and between groups. My question to you is that, will there be an apology by the head of state of the Republic of Liberia to the indigenes for the brutality exacted upon them over the years? Because the symbols represent one aspect of the divide, but an official acknowledgement, proclamation, and correction of the erroneous history is also critical to the redesign of the nation state called Liberia. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, I think it's a very interesting comment, and I think it speaks to this need to engage in national conversation. The caller is talking about some of the things that divide us as a people, and what we propose to do with those things that divide us. The caller is going back to the founding of Liberia and some of the conflicts that were inherent in the process of nation building. The caller could fast forward and come to 1980 and mention the 1980 coup and the impact that has had on Liberia, on particular Liberians. Or one could fast forward to the Civil War and look at the impact of that on people. So there's a whole range of unsettled issues, if I may put it that way, that would form an integral part of this conversation that we are having around these national symbols.
All right. I'll take one new caller, and then I'll take some follow-up caller, then back to new callers. 5735, new caller, 5735. Would you please tell us your name, where you're calling from, your question, comment, and our concern for Dr. Dunn?
Yeah, this is Siki Kwana. First of all, I'd like to express my thanks and appreciation to Dr. Dunn for coming on this show tonight to clarify a lot of issues regarding this whole exercise to Liberians. What I want to say, it is very simplistic for people to think that let's put this situation aside for now and concentrate on corruption and building roads and bridges. How can you talk about all of those things when people are having issue with, each other? Liberia has been in existence. These conversations about the national symbol is starting today. It is something that has gone on for decades. If people were satisfied with everything, I don't think all of this commission from top of time would have been set up. I don't think the conversation within the political circle, as well as in the intellectual circle, would have been going on. So there is something that many people are dissatisfied with. Particularly for me, it has been the motto, the loss of liberty brought us here. Of course, that doesn't represent all experience. And what I have suggested over the years, as far back as 2005, I know it is not a new argument, is that let us say loss of liberty brought us together. And togetherness is what we need. When we all speak one word, we all see ourselves represented in what is Liberian national symbol. When we all can sit together as one people and give each other equal recognition and appreciation, I think that is the way forward. So the argument that let's leave things the way it is just simplistic. It is not addressing the real issue that brought all the conflicts that we have in Liberia. And I think this commission that Dr. Dunn is part of or is coordinating is something that is really needed, and the conversation should continue. Of course, it is not going to be forced down the throat of Liberian people. We're going to have the opportunity to, engage in conversation, to contribute our idea to it. But I am commending this effort of Dr. Dunn and all the other great people over the years that have talked about this. It is about time that we do this. This is something whose time has come, and I think Liberians should stop, obstructing something that is historically significant for the growth of our nation. We have to see each other as one people, and the symbol that represents us as a nation is very important in this direction. Once again, thank you so much for this effort, and may God bless your effort and bring us to a fruitful conclusion that will be satisfactory to all Liberians. Thank you so much. God bless.
Thank you. Dr. Dunn, before you add or subtract from that, if you care, you don't agree that, you wouldn't agree with our caller in suggesting, for instance, that our national symbols have anything to do with the Civil War, would you? Do you agree that the 14-15 years long fought Civil War was in any way part or shape or form caused by any of our national symbols? Do you?
No, not directly, but I'm sure you saw reflected in the brutality that we meted out to one another during those 14, 15 years of war. We saw reflected national disunity. We saw reflected an unreconciled people. We saw reflected the absence of a national identity. These are the things that you need to look at in relationship to the symbols. So the symbols did not cause the war, but those things that divide us, those things that leave us unreconciled, those things that clearly point to our being, our having an absence of a common identity. We are a people of diverse backgrounds. We have many ethnic groups. We are part of sometimes 2 or 3 different sub-identities and so forth. But this sense of a national oneness is rather weak, in my view. And so it is those kinds of things that fed into the Civil War. And the Civil War, in turn, exacerbated some of these things. That is what one is talking about.
Thank you, Dr. Dunn. Thanks always. Folks, I got so many of you lined up here now. That's a good thing, but you still have a chance to dial *61 on your phone if you want to be part of this national conversation. But at the same time, do be reminded that we have about 45 minutes to go. It's a 2-hour show. Perhaps we're at 18 minutes, since we're behind by 18 minutes. So the sooner you ask a question, the better off we will all be. So let's take I got 2 follow-up callers on the line. So let's take one of the follow-up callers, and then I'll go back to new callers. Mr. Bennett in Milwaukee, your follow-up question quickly, sir.
Thank you very much for recognizing me again, Mr. Kromah. Dr. Dunn, good evening again.
Good evening.
Before I ask my question, I just feel that I didn't get the actual clarity that I wanted from my question, but I would like to, first of all, make a very, very brief comment before going further to ask my question again. For me, I believe that there are more opposing sides to any situation. I think that's the better time to have more debate. So I agree with those who think that we should continue this debate, and whatever is going to be the outcome, a review doesn't mean that you should change it, or it also doesn't mean that you should leave it as it is. It means that you should look at it to see whether you can change it or not. So I believe that this is the best time to have a debate, because other people are opposing. I just wish that there will be more people to say we shouldn't change it, then we should change it, and more people coming with different things. Okay, let's leave it in the middle. Then I think that's the best time for more argument so that we can understand it. So having said that, let me come back to my question. I think to me, maybe I might have asked it a weak way, so let me just try to change it this way. Is there any connection between the way one relates to his national symbols and his or her level of patriotism? So to say this, I mean, does one relationship with your national symbol make you less patriotic or more patriotic? If it makes you more patriotic or less patriotic, is there any connection between that and corruption? Maybe I'm trying to say maybe the more corrupt you are, can you be? Does that mean that you are less patriotic, or the less corrupt you are more patriotic? What is your view? But because you are also part of the Liberian population, that you are also whose view you are sampling right now to make up your project report. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Thanks for your follow-up question, Dr. Dunn.
My own views, I think, are known and will become maybe even better known as we go forward. So, but let me just say this too. I don't want Mr. Pelete to feel that I don't want to address this question. I think we want to be in a place where the question of who is a Liberian patriot is not an issue. I think we are not at that place at the present time, because we look at some of our symbols. Some of us look at those symbols and we can relate to and identify with some of them. Others of us look upon some of those same symbols and we feel, rather than identify with them, we feel alienated from them. And I think that is what brings about this discussion. Now, I don't know how the issue of corruption fits into all of this. I know that there is a major problem of corruption in Liberia, but I don't know how it relates directly to this.
Okay, Dr. Dunn. Before I take another caller, though, Dr. Dunn, can I ask you, you talked about how this national conversation will engage Liberians all across the globe. For instance, you made specific mention of EULA and a similar organization in Europe and or Ghana. Personally, I'm sitting here thinking that, wait a minute. On one hand, you have Liberians in the diaspora fighting, at least most of them fighting for dual citizenship, so which imply, at least in my opinion, that perhaps most of those Liberians now living in Liberia, living in Europe and America, have perhaps taken additional citizenship, and which we now know that by doing so, they've given out their Liberian citizenship. So why would it matter for Liberians who are not considered Liberian under the current law to even have an input on this matter?
That's an interesting question. I mean, it's interesting because I didn't say this earlier, but I'm a member of a 6-person Constitution Review Committee. Councillor Gloria Musu-Scott is the chair of this committee. And I know that the question of dual citizenship is one of the issues that was, hotly debated or continue to be hotly debated during the Constitutional Review process. And the issue has not been resolved because the consultation process of the Constitutional Review Committee is an ongoing process. I know that it has been we've gone through the 15 counties and consulted with the people on the ground in Liberia. And up to the time I left Liberia, I know that plans were underway to come over here and go to Ghana and so forth and so on, and consult with Liberians there. So it's a wide open issue, I'm trying to say. In other words, it has not been resolved. And until it's resolved, then I think it becomes difficult to provide an answer to your question.
Okay, thank you. We'll take a new caller, and then follow-up callers are increasing in number, so I'll take one new call, one follow-up call. And I'll take a new call, and after that, Mr. Sekou, I'll come back to you for your follow-up question. But let's take a new caller before you. Let's take 6929, 6929. Would you please tell us your name, where you're calling from, your question, comment, or concern for Dr. Dunn?
My name is Clarence Gono. I live in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania.
Welcome to the show.
This is just a comment and a little question. But for me, I think this debate is a false debate. It's a false debate in that it is intended to distract the attention of Liberians on the problem that is facing in our country. One, we have never had a good government in Liberia before. We have never had a good government in Liberia. If Liberia has had a very good governmental system where everything is fine, we will never have this debate. So I want to tell Dr. Dunn that he should go back to maybe the government and say that the government should improve the governmental system, the governmental structure. In that way, this debate would never have come. Now, the question to Dr. Dunn is this debate really about changing things in Liberia, or just about trying to pull out a show to make the people feel that the government is doing something about what is happening in our country?
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Gono. Dr. Dunn?
Well, skepticism will be part and parcel of this exercise. I can simply say to Mr. Gono that as far as I understand, and I sometimes think my understanding is limited in terms of where my mandate is coming from, there is a genuine feeling that as we address the material needs of our people, as the government attempts to do that it's also important to look at the non-material side, the value side, the idea side, the changing minds side, the mindset change side, because if we do not simultaneously address the material and the non-material, we risk redeveloping the material, rebuilding the economy, building the roads and the bridges and so forth and so on. And if it is a disunited people, an unreconciled people, a people lacking a sense of national identity, the ownership of all those material things could be in question. And it becomes much easier for demagogues and others to arise and possibly take us down the road that we don't want to follow again.
Okay, thank you. Gono was a new call, so we'll take a follow-up caller now, and then we'll go to a new call again. So, Mr. Sekou Kromah from, I don't know where you're calling from, but anyway, welcome back to the show. Your follow-up question, comment, or concern, sir, Mr. Kromah.
Thank you, Kafumba. I'm actually calling from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I just wanted to make a point of clarification. So most of the callers refer to the fact that we all migrated to Liberia in search of freedom. I think that is a bit disingenuous, because by 1822, Liberia, while people came, the people that came there, the indigenous Liberians were not even given general suffrage until way down the line or around 1965. So to say that Liberia was so free that people were being coming from other parts of the world where they were persecuted and running down for freedom, I do not believe that is reality. All one has to do is to read Ulrich or even Dr. D. Elwood Dun. He is a historian and a political scientist and a diplomat. But I just want to make that clarification that Liberia has never been a place where people came in search of freedom, except those that were really persecuted in the United States of America, kept in bondage, that the American Colonization Society decided to expatriate them to Liberia that was not occupied by any of the colonial powers. But even when they got there, they had to negotiate with the leaders they met there, including King Salboso and others. So people were not coming there say, like when my great-grandfather came from Mali, I think he was just a Malibu traveling down until he settled in Cape Town. He was not especially coming for freedom. He was spreading Quran and at the same time making a living, because I do not believe of being persecuted in Mali. That's just my piece. Thank you.
So, Mr. Kromah, before I let you go, do you agree in essence then with what one of the callers said, rather than saying that the love of liberty brought us here, that should be rewarded to say that the love of liberty brought us together and not here?
Unequivocally, yes.
Okay.
Or something to that extent.
All right. Let's see what Dr. Dunn has to say. Dr. Dunn?
Well, I mean, it's a view. And we're looking for more views. We want to find out what the Liberian people are thinking. And I'm hearing the Liberian people speak right now, which is good.
All right. Let's take a new caller. Let's hear from Senior Yewle, Brooklyn Park, Minnesota, one of the promoters of this show. So it's Ability, and so many people on here. Sia and the rest of you. I don't want to forget to acknowledge that. Brother Senior Yewle, welcome to the show. Your question, comment, or concern for Dr. Dunn.
Brother Kafumba, thank you so much for taking the call. Like many others, let me say good evening to you, Dr. Dunn.
Good evening. How are you?
Thank you, sir. Let me start by saying I think the debate or the question about our national identity should be one that we all should be willing to espouse, because it's just a proud thing to be called a Liberian and to be known as a Liberian. I think in that light, we all can be proud that we have a national identity. But to what extent are we promoting our own national identity is another thing. But this is where I'm a little bit baffled. You know, we had Dr. Sawyer on this very show on Sunday, January 5th, talking about Good Government's Commission. And you are also part of the Good Government Commission. And everybody talking about 2030, you know, the intended goal of Liberia, the shaping of Liberia by 2030, with all of these little commissions here, consultation meetings here, and what have you. What happened to the recommendation that was put forth by the TRC report? And it's no doubt in my mind that this exercise is part of that whole framework. So the question now is, why can't we have the moral courage to discuss the TRC as we are doing with these little commissions, consultation taking place in Liberia and also in the USA? Why isn't the government or the Good Government's Commission recommending to the president, encouraging this president to allow the debate or discussion, just discussion around the implementation of the TRC, as we are doing now with national identity, we are doing with the 2030 millennium goal, you know, all of these things, the PRS, the poverty reduction strategies, all of these little consultations have been taking place. Why aren't we seeing the same effort, the same courage, the same, fortitude being put into the discussion? Not even the full implementation yet, because it might be toilsome, but just the discussion around the TRC implementation. Why isn't that happening? And my last question, so I can leave you and listen to you. Where do you stand on the implementation of the TRC report? Kafumba, thank you for taking my call, and thank you, Dr. Dunn, for allowing me to ask you.
Thank you very much. I think it is a very significant comment that has just been made. And I say significant because, in my mind, what we are doing in terms of initiating or carrying out this conversation around the symbols does not preclude our talking about the TRC report. Now, I know that the speaker will immediately say we do not have, expressly a mandate to discuss the TRC report. But I would come back and say, no, the mandate is to discuss everything that relates to our identity problematic, that relates to our disunity problematic, that relates to our reconciliation problematic. Yes, there are some political problems, and I think one has to recognize them. In other words, we see the TRC report came out, and subsequently we hear that the independent, I think it's called the Independent Human Rights Commission, that body is charged with the responsibility of carrying out the recommendations of the TRC report. There is still some cloud, I think, that hovers over the question of what we as the people will do with all of this serious investigation and research that that represents today what we are calling the TRC report. So I would like to suggest that there is nothing, absolutely nothing, that precludes our discussing the TRC report. And therefore, I would encourage every Liberian who is interested in this national conversation, this broad national consultation, to bring that into the picture as well. And let us talk about all of that, since we do not have a specific mandate or a specific structure to carry forward this particular conversation.
Okay, thanks again. Let's hear from Mr. Randolph Asmana in New York, and then we'll come to 1967 next, and then we're getting close to Mr. Sidibe in Dallas, so keep on just hanging there. Mr. Jawata from New York, welcome to the Liberian Diaspora Forum. Your question, comment, or concern?
Dr. Dunn, the first thing I want to find out before I make my comment is, what is the budget allocated for this exercise?
There has been no budget allocated as such. There has been given seed money to initiate the exercise. And it is that seed money that we use in order to put out two programs that I mentioned at the beginning, that is the launching of the project and the holding of a symposium. The third major thing we are doing is research and publication of material that will be used for civic education. We have made a proposal to the government, a budgetary proposal, but that is something that is being considered as we speak.
Okay. Here is my take on this. We had several elections, and we saw how the people voted. And now you're talking about this exercise, and you're talking about the people are saying. Do you know that majority of the people, even close to 85% of the people, are not educated? And how can they deal and take part in this exercise? Shouldn't our focus be on educating the people first, so all of us can be almost equal on the same level, at least with a high school education, so that we'll be able to read and digest the document or to even discuss the exercise we're talking about? This is why we are having most of the problem. It is because we do not have more than 50% of the people educated. So anybody, any PhD, any doctor, anyone that have written book will come and talk to our people that don't understand at all, but talk good talk and get their vote on an issue. This is not hefty enough. We need to, the same exercise that you're proposing, we need to do the same exercise to educate the people. We need to focus our attention on educating the masses. You're talking about 10 years from now, how many of our children will be high school graduates? How many of them will be able to read the material that you're talking about? It is not time for us to do this exercise because we don't have more than 50% of the population ready to do so. And it's not fair to those. Dr. Dunn, just imagine going in a village and talking about this issue. As soon as you use big words, they're going to clap for you. They're going to dance for you, but they don't even understand what we're talking about.
Mr. Moderator, I would like to comment on this particular call.
Okay. Yeah, okay, let's give him a chance to conclude, though. Are you done, Mr.
I'm finished. I'm finished.
Okay. Thank you. All right, Mr. Dunn, go ahead.
I would like to first agree with the caller that we need to educate our people. I have spent the past 35 years of my life in education, so I fully appreciate the importance of education. I would have to make that point clearly first. But having said that, and having experienced going into rural Liberia, I was in Foya and Vahon very recently as part of the Constitution Review Committee's work. I must say that we have to be careful about assuming that we need modern Western-oriented education in order to understand our rights. I sat there and observed after we had done a kind of general civic education to inform people about the issues. People came up one by one in their traditional languages, and I observed the passion with which they expressed themselves about the issues once they had come to understand the issues. And those issues were being passed on to them through their languages as well. I think it is a disservice to some extent to assume that because someone has not gone through a formal education that you and I have had the opportunity to go through, that therefore they do not know their rights. And so I think while it is absolutely important for us to emphasize the need to educate and to educate all our people, I think we have to also recognize that even those who do not have this formal education already have some traditional education and have lived a life where they have come to appreciate their environment and their needs, and they can speak to their environment and to their needs. I think the whole process of democracy and voting would be rendered meaningless if we are saying that people are voting not knowing their interests. I just wanted to make those 2 points.
All right. Thank you for that clarification. We see the follow-up callers are piling up again, but we have about, 20, let's say roughly 25 minutes, 30 minutes left to go. So if you've been on here, I know there are a lot of us here, and having had a chance to say anything, please dial *61. We'll give you the chance, even over follow-up caller. We'll give first caller the preference. We'll take 1967, and then next we'll take Isiaka from Dallas. Stay in there, Mr. Sidibe. Let's hear from 1967. 1967, your name, where you calling from, and then your question, comment, or concern for Dr. Dunn.
Hello, my name is Ezekiel Glay.
Okay.
I've been listening to the conversation, and I have, it is not so much so about asking questions, but getting some thoughts out there about the necessity of changing the symbol, motto, and flag, or what have you. But I think it has so much to do with the system we have in place and those who are in power to lead or to steer the ship that the state Liberia is. Take, for example, I was in Monrovia sometime last year, and I was coming from Pinsville going towards downtown Monrovia. And I saw a legislator getting in the opposite lane, going the opposite direction, with his or her car lights flashing. Okay, and I asked him, is that an emergency vehicle? And he said, no, it is a representative. So the point, one of the points that I want to make, I have 2 points, but one of the points that I want to make here is, what good is it if the symbol or the national anthem or the flag and all of those things are changed, but those who we call leaders, their mentality or their behavior have not changed. We had Dr. Dunn on here tonight. He has, I think he chaired a commission before, and up to this date, we don't know what the result of his report that he gave to the president is relative to his recommendations. So I'm just saying, there are certain basic things that we need to focus more on, that the people in the villages, even those in Monrovia, care more about, which is access to good quality health, safe drinking water, access to quality education for their children, good roads, support, for farms, so that if they are good, farm to the market roads, so they can bring their produce to town and provide for their kids, create jobs. I think these are things that we ought to be discussing and pushing the government to prioritize versus symbols and what the motto says. Because the motto can say that the love of the native people brought us here, but even if the natives themselves or those who are in power are the very ones who are pillaging the very little national money that the country has, or that the people will need to improve their life, are not doing anything, to better the lives of those people, I think, it is completely waste of very precious, scarce resources that we need to put more towards things that are going to benefit people, for the greater number of people, for the greater good of the country. So it's just that point I wanted to make. Dr. Dunn?
Yeah. Thank you. Dr. Dunn?
Thank you. No, I think it comes back to this question of, do we do one over the other? And I have been trying to advocate our doing both. Because, just like we human beings are both body and spirit, or body and soul, nations are that way too. We cannot think only about the material thing and ignore the non-material, because the non-material validates in a real sense the material. So when we say symbols review, we are not just talking about an exercise in futility. We're talking about an exercise that helps to connect us as a people and to connect us in ways that will cause us to have a kind of collective ownership of the material things that we are trying to reconstruct, to rebuild in the aftermath of war. I can understand the sentiment expressed about government officials doing things untowards and so forth and so on. Of course, we will hear a lot more about that. I see a little bit of that myself, driving up and down Monroe all the time. It's unfortunate. We have to work seriously to try to change minds and change attitudes. We've gone through a whole lot in that country. Sometimes I have a tendency of going back to 1979, when things really began shaking up regarding the country. Then we come to 1980, and then we come to the Civil War. We've had enough to cause us to pause, to stop, to reflect as a people, and to change our attitude and to change our mindset, because it's only to the extent that we are able to bring about those kinds of changes that we will see ourselves moving more clearly towards this vision 2030, this new Liberia, this developmental state that is described in the Vision 2030 document. But it means that we have to all be serious about bringing about these changes in our country for the better.
Okay, thank you. Let's hear from Isiaka from Dallas, Texas. Mr. Stevie, welcome to the show. Your question, comment, or concern for Dr. Dunn.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kromah, and thanks, Dr. Dunn. I'm very for this conversation. I'm very excited about this conversation, and I want us to have this conversation. I have not formed all of my conviction about it because it's just started. It may be lingering around, but it's just started to kind of pop up on a stage. We all know, if you say the love of liberty brought us here, we that were back home are not included in that. And if we are not included, we may not form the totality of it. We are not part of it. So that needs to change. We all know that. Whether we have the passion enough to have that change, because remember, people are resistant to change. So I really think we should change some of those. And if you say it shall long be ours, who are they really talking about? Are they talking about the white or us? Because there was a conflict between the indigenous and those that were from here. So that statement right there may not be actually about those slavers, people that enslaved us. It's about actually the indigenous that they went and met. So if the country is passionate enough about change, it is something that we should do. Now, there's a lingering suspicion in me that is actually saying that why this initiative? Is it a tactic by the government to switch our mind off of the important things that we have? Infrastructure, we are stuck on infrastructure, the development, all those things. They've been there for so long and nothing is happening. And because of that, they want to switch our minds to some of these discussions and then do whatever they want to do. I have this suspicion all the time. So what brought about this initiative? Because you said you have implied that some people may be alienated. But we did not get any reason as to what the alienation might be about. So, Dr. Dunn, why you think people are alienated? Have people come to you, the majority of Liberians in your survey, that there's this switch, this turn off about the seal and the symbols of Liberia? But I really, really, honestly, I really think we should carry out this discussion because it's going to bring about some different conversations, and I'm all for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Dunn.
Yeah, well, yes, Liberians have had things to say about this already, and I think I went back to the 1970s and the Shield Commission report. So the Liberians spoke then, back in the 1970s. Liberians spoke up during the TRC, the Truth and Reconciliation process. Liberians spoke up during the Vision 2030 process. So we have some basis upon which to proceed. But we have not completed our own exercise. In fact, we are just beginning our own exercise, to which we would join those earlier ones and then figure out what it is that people desire about these, what they mean by alienation. We will try to figure out a way, we will develop a methodology that will help us to make sense of what people are saying when they say they feel alienated for this reason or that. But we will first take, and this is the basis upon which we have started. That is, these earlier reports, these earlier processes, TRC process, Vision 2030 process, these are the things that have given us reasons to want to carry forward this particular exercise that we are doing now.
Okay. Thanks again, Dr. Dunn, for being patient and spending your time with us. It looks like I have a whole lot of follow-up callers that I'm not even sure if I can accommodate all of them in the interest of time. We'll do the best we can. Let's hear again. I believe this was Joseph or just 3662. Could you please tell us your name again? I know you were here before. I just forgot your name. 3662, 763 area code. Could you please restate your name again and your follow-up question or comment or concern?
Yes, my name is Joseph Johnson. I'm from Brooklyn Park, Minnesota.
Okay.
I'm still with Dr. Dunn. You see, this exercise will take a very long time. And if we even go further, then we are tampering with the Constitution, the preamble to the Constitution. See, the people of Liberia were originally, citizens of the United States of America. You see, so as I said earlier, that we are in green to the misappropriations of the symbols or nationalizing certain group of people by what the symbols are saying. You see? But we are used to it. What we need now is to find a direction that will make us feel happy. We carry human beings on our head, and we forgot about it since the motor car came and we are free. The car set us free. But we were punished for the failure of the government for to build roads. So we were punished for that. We have gone through that. What we need now is we need food. We need education. We need fair treatment. The officials should stop looting the land so that we can have a fair share too. You see, that's what we need. But the exercise of now it should be the land will be for us, the freedom of liberty shall not be ours. Whether the law that we talk about means 50 years or 100 years, it's about 200 years now. And we're not saying anything. The native are not saying anything. But what the native want is we must not live in our own country pitifully. You see, that with pitiful faces.
Okay, all right.
We will not be on a backing end. I went to Monrovia last year, and I saw.
We are very tight.
I saw the owner of the land. I was sorry for the look. Okay. These are the things we want to be corrected.
Okay, thank you.
Instead of wasting our time on symbols.
Okay, thank you. We're going to leave it there, Mr. Joseph. I'm sure Dr. Dunn will be kind to join us in the future if need be. Dr. Dunn?
Yeah, the only comment I will make here is that Mr. Joseph made reference to we, but I heard two we's, not one we. And the fact that I'm hearing two we's already suggests that we are not a united people. We want one we. We have two. I'm hearing from him 2 weeks. That's all I need to say at this point.
Okay. Let's hear from Mr. Mohammed Sharif, follow-up caller from Philadelphia, and then we'll take a new caller, and then we'll jump on to Sia in D.C. Mr. Sharif, welcome back to the show. Your follow-up question quickly. We are really short on time.
I will try to be brief. A previous caller talked about 1821, that somehow the law of liberty does not apply to him and his descendants. But when you stop your history, when you start from 1821, then I have an issue because Liberian history does not start on 1821. Right? So that's out of the question. No one left Mali. No one left all these other places for freedom. That's untrue also because there were wars. But I don't want to go into all these ancient histories because there were wars, there were famine, there were hunger, there were all kinds of persecution in all those places. And so people left. People traveled. People are still traveling. The reason why we're here, we are in the United States for what? For freedom. We came here because we were devastated by war. So we're here again. So somehow to believe that, okay, all of a sudden our history started in 1821 is untrue. The love of liberty, again, that's perfect. The love of liberty brought us here. So Liberia is a country that cherishes freedom, hopefully, and so it's befitting that that country hosts everyone who loves freedom and who wants freedom. Quickly, I just want to talk about, changing these national symbols. So while we're at it, are we now going to change the names of our towns and villages? Buchanan comes to mind, Monrovia, Greenville, Harper. So if you change the name of Monrovia, what is it going to be? Is it going to be something that I, Mandingo man, can identify with? If you're going to change Providence Island, the name of Providence Island now, is it going to be something that I can identify with? Something that King Salvoso played a great role in? So let's be careful on how we're going to go about renaming all these places. I would like to see the national executive leadership be most forceful in terms of promoting legislation that will bring all of our people together. And that start with legislation. That start with laws. So let's make good laws, national attitudes. These are better than national symbols. I mean, you try to revise history. In the United States, we have a lot of history. And so, you see the past from these historical artifacts, from these buildings, from these names. So you see a lot of history. Every now and then in Liberia, we tend to destroy our history. Oh, Mr. Torba died, so we're going to knock his monuments. Oh, such and such is not here, so we're going to knock this down. So,
Mr. Sharif,
just real quick.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Sharif. Dr. Dunn, that's a whole new element to the debate, I would argue. So are you also contemplating, have you ever thought about that will we ever need to change the names of some of our cities, major cities, like the caller mentioned, Monrovia, Buchanan, Harper,
Yeah, all those things have been said before. Even in orations, people have talked about those things. I think it's important to point out that that is not part of the mandate of this project. Whether there will be a groundswell of support for changing names of towns and cities and so forth and so on is something to be seen. That is not part of the mandate.
But Dr. Dunn, if you agree that, because it sounded as if to say you already know for a fact that there are some Liberians who feel alienated about some of our national symbols, the flag, the national anthem. If that is true, can we also not argue? Wouldn't it also be safe, rather, to argue that some people feel, some Liberians feel alienated about the names of some of our major cities? Monrovia, how does the native Liberian sees him or herself in Monrovia, in Buchanan? So shouldn't we discuss those? Shouldn't that be part of it? What?
Views have been expressed about all of those things. And I suppose we will hear even more of it as this debate is wide open at this point in time. And we want to hear what people have to say. And when we hear what they have to say, we will report to our principals what people are saying. And our principals will then be the one to determine what to do with what people are saying. I think I went through a process of constitutional amendment here. I mean, if we want to make a change in any of these symbols, the process that we would follow to bring about these changes. So I guess what I'm saying is we cannot stop people from expressing their views on matters that may be extraneous to the project, meaning things that are not directly related to the project. We will report everything.
Okay. Sounds good to me. Let's take, I'm going to take one new caller, and then I'll come to you for a follow-up call from D.C. Let's hear who this person is and what they have to contribute. 9263, 9263, 515 area code. 9263. Would you please tell us your name, where you're calling from, your question, comment, or concern for Dr. Dunn?
Hello?
Yeah, your name.
Leon Harris. Leon, I'm not a new caller after that. I think I spoke earlier.
Oh, you did? Okay. My bad.
Yeah,
all right, well, I got you on now, so go ahead.
Yeah. I mean, actually, I'm just, I think one thing we shouldn't miss here is that we shouldn't create bigger problems. As we go about discussing this issue, let's try to do it in a reconciliatory way. So you try to bring us together while they follow dividing us. That's one thing some people try to downplay. You can have a good situation and just mess it up, or even create a much bigger problem. Let's try to be respectful, dignify about the whole discussion. Don't try to bring other people down, call them plantation slave or whatever. Let's be respectful. It's a national discussion. Let's discuss it. So that's just my input.
Thank you. Thank you for your contribution tonight, Brother Leo. So let's now hear from Sia. Sia, who are back in D.C. Your follow-up question. Please keep it brief. We've got 12 minutes left to go. Please keep it brief, Sia.
Yeah. Dr. Dunn, I believe that united in diversity is a motto that I believe will ameliorate the tension and bridge the gap. But as I said earlier, a revised history that is accurate is critical to the debate. Liberia was a haven for a few, but most of the settlers did not come to Liberia voluntarily. There were various repatriation schemes. Some were deported from the U.S. due to their agitations against the whites. Others left because they felt that they would not be absorbed in mainstream American culture. And, of course, we know the Congos came out of the Congo Basin area, an area that is still riddled with conflict, even in this time. So revisionist history is important to advance Liberia and to, legitimize the knowledge and events recorded in our history. Our history is anonymous. It's incongruent to the realities. You can't say that no one was there. People were there. The Kifis, as your history records, have been with the foundation prior to any other group coming in. You have the Golas also, who shared the same platform in the Northwest. So I just think that we need to really change this history. Thank you.
Thank you, Sia. Dr. Dunn, do you want to add or keep taking these people so we get out of here?
Well, the only comment I would make on that is that someone was talking about reform and changes in Liberia while we're doing them now. We're doing them now because we are coming out of a serious conflict, and there are many projects that are on the table, and there is a history project that is also on the table. In other words, Liberian historians and other scholars are coming together to do what, and I think it's important to point this out, to do what Africans did in the aftermath of independence in the early 60s. African scholars got together and said that the history of Africa was written from a Western perspective, and they wanted the history of Africa to be written from an African perspective. And a series of volumes came out that collectively we call the UNESCO History of Africa, because it was sponsored and supported by UNESCO, and its volume, General History of Africa. I'm saying this to say that the Liberian scholars are using that model to revisit the history of Liberia and to do a more comprehensive history of the Liberian people that will take into account something I heard some of your speakers earlier on allude to. That is, by no means can one think about Liberia, the history of Liberia, as starting in 1821. It has to go all the way back, in fact, several hundred years back. So it is this time an attempt to do a comprehensive history of all of the Liberian people. So that is a project that is already on the table as I speak.
Thank you. With 7 minutes to go, now it's clear that I will not be able to get to all of you in the queue, but we will get to those that we can. Please bear with us if we don't get to you. I will do the very best I can to get all of our new callers. So speaking of new callers, let's hear from 7255, 7255. Your name, where you calling from, your question, comment, or concern for Dr. Dunn.
Yeah, my name is Foliboli Kromah. I'm calling from Chester, Pennsylvania. Dr. Dunn, how are you, sir?
Very well.
Okay, I don't have too much to say, but the whole thing about symbol changing is very, very problematic. So, like somebody said earlier, we have to be respectful as we go about whatever we think we should go about to change. But, I mean, from my own perspective, my own opinion, I strongly see that Liberia, the whole thing about Liberia is corrupted, and we are all alienated in some way or one way or the other. So if you talk about changing symbols, national symbols, and names of cities, names of streets and stuff, you have a lot to do. Even the name of people we have to change. Okay, because we have people that will be called, my name is Joseph Johnson. Yeah, Joseph Johnson cannot be identified as a Kissy man, but you will be claiming to be a Kissy man. I could be called Philip Johnson, and I will claim to be a Madingo person. And technically, you cannot even identify me through a Madingo culture. So Liberia we are corrupted. So if you want to rename all of these things, it means we have to rename human beings, name of streets, name of public buildings, and the rest. So we have to be very, very careful. Maybe we have to change names of streets and things. Maybe we have to build new cities. Okay? But a lot of us stay alienated because as a Madingo person, I feel strongly that any issue regarding us Madingo people is nobody cares about it. No other tribe will speak for us. We have to speak for ourselves. The government will not protect us, and the government is not protecting us. Okay? I can give you a case in point. The situation in Nimba.
Can you please keep it brief? We're really out of time.
Yeah, let me make it brief. The situation in Nimba, hey, we are not protected. Okay? We continue to be corrupted. So that's my input.
Thank you. Really appreciate it. Dr. Dunn, you care to comment on that or take somebody else?
I think you're already seeing the need for this conversation. And I would just make this blanket comment, and that is that we're not confused about this question of changing names, changing personal names, and changing town names and so forth, because we have to recognize that we come from these three backgrounds that I keep mentioning, the African background, the Islamic background, and the Western background. And our job is to figure out how we are going to combine these three heritages in ways that will serve our best interests.
Okay. Let's take a new caller. I believe this is George Toto from Pittsburgh. Mr. Toto, if this is you, your question, comment, or concern for Dr. Dunn. George Toto.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Moderator, and also thank you to Dr. Dunn. I did came in a little bit late. I hope that now this now will repeat the question, but I would like to know what would be upon the completion of the work, what would be some of the potential recommendations to the Liberian people in terms of some of the changes in the various single.
Okay.
Yeah, it's hard to say that now because we haven't heard from the people yet. We are hearing from you now. We're hearing from others. So we don't know. We cannot prejudge. We don't know what the final outcome will be, meaning what people will finally say. We will try to faithfully report to our principals what people say. And as I said earlier, let's say, for example, we made a report to the president, and the president passed on to the legislature. That is the process. If the legislature agrees with what it receives and passes it by a 2/3 majority, then it will eventually go to a referendum, meaning the people will have to, at that tail end of things, determine whether they approve what they have been saying. So it's a long process. It isn't anything that happens overnight.
Thank you, Dr. Dunn. With 2 minutes to go. That's interesting. Let's hear from 6377, 6377, very quickly. Your name, where you calling from, your question, comment, or concern for Dr. Dunn.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Moderator. My name is Marakita. I'm calling from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Thank you, Dr. Dunn, for sharing the community thoughts with us tonight. Like many of our previous callers talk about, symbol change. I think our biggest problem today is not those symbols that are currently on our books. This is my view. If you look at this government, unity-led government has been in governance for almost 10 years now. Okay, we look at what the government has done and what other people are thinking about this government. Corruption has been the thing that most Liberians are really talking about. Like one of the previous callers said, I think we need strong laws that will really bring about what Liberia ought to be. For example, in a couple of years, in a few months from now, we will be going into election for people who will be representing us in either in Senate or in the House of Representatives. And for 10 years, this government has not been able to even make the necessary constitutional changes that at least would allow the tenure of those legislatures. Tell me, senators, 9 years, representatives, 6 years. I mean, let's look at our surrounding countries and see which country actually have a constitution that allow one person to rule for at least 9 years. And the government had the first mandate. Nothing was done, at least to bring about a reduction in the term of this legislature. Only now, they're trying to play something like a lip service, and trying to say, well, we want to do this, we want to do. I mean, symbol are one thing, but in the laws, and now I think we should begin with our constitution. The tenure of this legislature, senators and representatives, do not really match up at all. Okay, so something needs to be done. If nothing is done, and we go into election a couple of months' time, and we see another batch of senators and representatives being elected for another year term, many of us actually will be really in our late 60s. And I don't think that has been fair to our generation. Okay. And, yes, thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Keita. Thank you. Mr. Dr. Dunn, I think the issue of focusing on constitutional amendment has been, can't be emphasized enough. A lot of the callers have said that tonight. So if you're looking for recommendation, there you go. Do you want to comment on that last caller before I take a squeeze?
Yeah. Well, it fits more. Yeah, it fits more with the question of constitutional review than the symbols review. And I, as a member of the Constitutional Review Committee, I can say that from what we are hearing from the people on the ground in Liberia, from the 15 counties, they seem to want changes in the legislative term, that 9 years is too long for senators and 6 too long for members of the House of Representatives. But it is not going to be possible to bring that change about overnight. It cannot happen between now and the October legislative election. And so it's a process. It will take some time if that is the consensus of the Liberian people.
Thank you. And I cannot forget, we are way over time, actually 2 minutes over time. It was my intention to end this show at 9 o'clock. It's 9. So let's be very. Let's please keep our questions brief and one question so we can be out of here in the next 5 or 10 minutes. 7336, your name, where you calling from, your question, comment, or concern for Dr. Dunn. 7336.
Hi.
Hi.
My name is Percy Harris, and I'm calling from Newark, Delaware. Good evening, Dr. Dunn. Hope you're having a good evening today. Happy Father's Day, too.
Thank you.
Here is my thing, Dr. Dunn. I'm a little concerned with when it comes to this whole review thing. Is it a historical thing, or are you guys just doing it? Because my question here is, I'm more concerned about you guys. You're probably misjudging the time that we are in. Especially young Liberians like myself, we are not really interested in hatching and rehatching those old fights of the past. You know what I mean? The facts remain. The facts are there. I've read several of your books. We read these things in school, and what I see, the facts are there. The current nation state of Liberia was founded by a group of people that came from in the Caribbean, the Americas, and here. That part of it we cannot erase. Liberia did not. Liberia at its founding did not encompass what we have as Liberia now. It was few colonies, few group of people that founded what is now Liberia. So are we trying to wipe out their contribution towards the current nation state of Liberia? I'm not talking about what 500 years ago, the current nation state of Liberia, what we have as Liberia, what we know to be Liberia. Are we trying to wipe out these people's contribution towards that? And that's my question.
It is not possible. It is not possible to do that. You're right that the nation state of Liberia started small. When I say it started small, it was begun by a small number of people and encompassed a small territory. Expansion took place into the hinterland and other parts of Liberia at a later stage. What one is trying to say basically here is that we need a historical narrative that is reflective of the experience of all Liberians, which is another way of putting this nation state that you talk about in a broader context. In other words, trying to explain how all of the people of Liberia came to be a part of this nation state that started small. I think that's part of the task.
Thank you, Dr. Dunn. Obviously, I've said I will not be able to take all of you. That is the truth. I know so now than ever before. But this is a good thing. The fact that so many of you are willing to talk about this issue now, I am sure Dr. Dunn will bless us with his presence again, or we'll find him on other shows, some other places. It is an ongoing conversation. This is by no means the end. It's just the beginning. With that said, let me quickly remind you, tomorrow, same place, same time, 7 p.m. Central, 8 p.m. Eastern, we'll have the recently hired government lawyer who's going to be confronting Judge Melvin Johnson on the show together. The two lawyers will, for the first time, will come in contact tomorrow to discuss legal issues with respect to corruption charges labeled against Melvin Johnson and his fiancée, Ellie Conqueror. They will all be on the show tomorrow. Arrangements have been concluded today, so please join us tomorrow, 7 o'clock p.m. Minnesota Central Time. All right, let's take one. Let's take the last two follow-up caller here, and then we'll just call it a night, Dr. Dunn. Mr. Ability, welcome again. Your follow-up, please keep it brief, please.
Yeah, thank you very much. This is just a comment. I'm not asking a question now. I want to go back to the motto. I think Brother Mohammed Sherry took a lot from my tongue. But again, I'm from Liberia, where the most valuable commodity is politics, and where there's politics, people talk. So I'm going to just post myself and say something. I want us to understand one thing. While it is true that the American Liberians came to Liberia or went to Liberia because they wanted self-governance or political freedom or liberty, we should also understand that when the West Sudanese Empire fell in the between the 14th to the 15th centuries, people also left because of political freedom, the insertion of political freedom, economic freedom, trade freedom. So it's also part of the freedom. One should not argue that because it was not cast by my people or I was not part of it when we were casting this, then it doesn't make any sense. Let's take, for instance, Eula. Let's assume that the motto of Eula was, our commitment to our country made us form this organization or brought us together. Should you argue that because you came here a long time and you didn't form part of the formation of ULA, then it doesn't apply to you? It applies to you. You have to understand that it all depends on where you see yourself in the history of Liberia. You can't argue that. Hey, okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. Thank you. I know there are second commodity in Liberia that debate. So, sorry, Mr. Benito, I had to cut you off. I'm really over time here. I got other engagement. So the last caller for the night is another follow-up caller, 9263. Please keep it brief. This is your third or fourth time coming with follow-up questions. So you got the last show. Go ahead. 9263. Hello?
Hello?
Dr. Dunn.
Yeah.
Are you on? 9263,
Yeah, I'm Leon. Mr. Dunn, once again, I know, thanks for coming on board. My question has to do with the constitutional revision committee that you are part of. Are you going to take similar approach coming to the diaspora to get our views?
Oh, that is the plan. Kelly, that is the plan.
Yeah, and actually to add to that, I got contacted from some fellows in Liberia sometime last week that the committee has been set up to review the Constitution. They are on their way over here. I don't know if Dr. Dunn knows anything about that.
Yes,
that's what I was told. That once they get here, that they will be using every medium, including that of ours, a similar medium, to reach out to Liberian, in addition to cross-city, states public speaking. So I think they have a plan to do so. Dr. Dunn, you made it. Congratulations, we made it. We still got a lot of questions waiting, but if we mount the question, we might not leave from here tonight. So as I said, hopefully you'll honor our invitation again in the future to come by and listen and get more views. Certified, that's what you're doing. Certified, that's what you are doing right now. So I want to return the floor to you again for your closing remark, just as we did for your opening remarks. So it's all yours, sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I look forward to the opportunity to speak with your audience once again. I enjoyed this exchange, and this is our purpose, to basically engage the Liberian people on these issues surrounding the symbols, the issue of national unity, of national reconciliation, and national identity. I think that is the core message that we want to leave with people as we go to the symbols. We use the symbols to advance these messages. That is, to the extent that we can address these issues, we will then see whether we want to make adjustments with our flag, adjustments with our seal, adjustment with, in my thinking, the lyrics of the national anthem. I don't see any controversy about the music of the national anthem, but some have raised questions about a word or two in the lyrics, and then, of course, adjustments in the national awards. So I hope we all will develop the kind of interest that will lead us to want to do our own personal research into these symbols, because I think to the extent that we are way up there in our knowledge of these things, the debate then is enriched, and we can move forward on these things. Thank you so much again. I appreciate this opportunity.
Thank you, Dr. Dunn. It's been a pleasure hosting you. And folks, thank you so much for being here, especially those of you who were on here before I even got here. That's remarkable. But don't forget to join us tomorrow, because we have a very important show tomorrow evening. So let's all have a good night. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.